One of my favorite topics to talk about is intuition. On one hand, we've got our intuition, and on the other hand, we have our ego. There's a bit of a battle between the two as we experience this human existence. So let's talk about that, your ego versus your intuition. Now, let's explain exactly what's going on here. Your ego will interrupt your manifesting, 100%. So we are absolutely all born with that pure intuition. Following your intuition means that we need to be clear on what is important to you. Many people don't listen to their intuition because they're fearful of trusting themselves and rely on that external validation. This is pretty much the ego programming, that lack of trust within yourself. And so it does take time to train to trust your intuition. Be easy on yourself as you start to learn to tap into this powerful part of you. And so going into it more detail, your ego sorry, start again. So while you were born with that pure intuition, your ego is formed when our survival was dependent on our caregivers. So so when you were little, you had that pure intuition, and yet growing up, your ego is formed. Now, the ego is dependent on you needing something outside of yourself. It is this need to depend on other people that actually lowers your frequency and makes it harder to manifest. So it makes sense as a child that we need to depend on our caregivers, but in doing so, we also depend on living out their model of the world. We take on their scarcity, we take on their problems, we take on their doubt. If they believe that this world is a dangerous place, our ego will hold on to that like a sponge, and we will forever live out that programming unless we actually go and do the work to undo the fear, the judgment, the low self worth. So your ego is going to be quite loud. It's going to be that critical kind of feeling, and it will generate that anxiety because its number one job is to keep us small, keep us safe, keep us part of the tribe. And then doing anything outside of that container is a potential threat. So while your intuition is saying, like, come and join me out here on the spotlight, your ego is going to say, it's not safe in the world, need to be small, can't be seen, can't be heard. And again, that was important growing up when we were little. But at some point in time, we grew up, and it's time to actually check in with the ego programs that keep you small like a child. Like, what do you mean it's not safe to be in this world? Like, if you believe that the world is safe, the world will be safe. I know from my own experience that my ex was an incredibly angry person, probably still is. And this was mirrored in his experience that the world, there was every reason to be angry at the world. So every time he would be on the roads, just like road rage and all sorts of scenarios, he would manifest this in just this constant experience to prove his ego right, that the world was an angry place. And so me going on the same roads was like driving Miss Daisy. It was just simple, easy, pleasant. And so we've got the exact same road, two different belief systems. And yeah, it paints a picture for itself. So coming back to the need versus want, when we approach manifesting from a place of need, the neediness will resist what is available to us. So if it is a need, like the ego, putting in a need that we need to stay small, this neediness is restricting our energy, and it's limiting how we can expand our energy to receive. Thinking about somebody who's in like a codependent relationship, they have a need to be in a relationship, and then there can be a level of resentment from the other person because there's that sense of entrapment versus the choice and the invitation to want to be in a relationship. And that wanting, that desire, it's kind of sexy and kind of attractive and alluring. So check in with yourself with the difference between needing your manifestation versus wanting your manifestation. So we spoke about the ego. Let's talk about the intuition. Now, trusting your intuition is a bit of a journey, but I want to point out to you what your intuition is not, because there's a lot of noise out there to talk about what is the difference. So your intuition is not your intuition is not self-talk, and it's not in a dialogue. Like it's like, oh, my intuition said. It's like, no, your intuition isn't going to talk to you. Your intuition is not going to be voices from the past. It's not Nana. It's not somebody in the spirit world talking to you. Your intuition is actually not going to be logical. Your intuition is not going to talk in sentences. Your intuition is not going to even be emotional. As crazy as that sounds, your intuition is not going to be emotional. It's not going to the happiness sort of ping is doesn't mean that's or the happy feeling I should say doesn't mean that that's a yes. That's not your intuition. Your intuition is definitely not going to be judgmental. So if you don't listen to it, it won't hold a grudge. It'll just continue to be there. Your intuition is not going to be loud and it's not going to be adamant in its strength for you. Hear me. That's more your ego. And your intuition isn't actually your beliefs. Your beliefs are a different program. Your experience means this. So your intuition isn't your beliefs either. Your intuition is not coming from your mind. However, your intuition, sorry, start again, your mind actually has to make sense of your intuition. So your intuitive pulse that I'm about to talk about, you will have that sensory experience and then your mind has to make sense of it. Do I trust this pulse or am I going to hold myself back? So your intuition is not part of your mind, but your mind has to make sense of it. So if somebody has a really strong trust in the science world, if they have a strong rational mind and put importance on logic, they're actually less likely to trust their intuition. At some point in time, they've basically turned off making sense about their feelings, and they've trusted their mind, trusted the facts. In some cases, that means that somebody's had a trauma or some sort of heavy duty experience where they had so much emotion that they switched it off. And so now they just trust in the facts. Anyway, gone off on a tangent. I love talking about this stuff. So, when to trust your intuition? If it's not all of that, what's left? Okay, so trust your intuition when you're aware of that outer kind of whisper. And that's like your higher self giving you that kind of pulsing kind of energy. Trust your intuition when it's that gentle guidance. Again, your ego is quite forceful. So your intuition is very, very gentle. It'll start off with like a bit of a whisper and then it will get a little bit louder, but it still stays in that gentle energy. Trust your intuition when you're aware of that sensation within. It's like that sensation in your heart space, the core of who you are, the gut. It is that intuitive pulse. Our human linguistics are so limited in the way to describe this, but knowing the difference to know like it is quite gentle. It's that pulse. It's a radiant kind of feeling. This is your intuition. And so trust your intuition when you're aware of that sense that comes from your sixth sense rather than the five others. So your five other senses, your sight, your hearing, your feeling, your smelling, your tasting, your touching, all of the five senses there. That's the way that your body experiences this human reality, but that is not your intuition. So your intuition is that sixth sense, that pulse. Okay. So I've gone a slide ahead of myself. So checking in with yourself and better understanding when your ego steps into place. Your ego will be quite loud when you're wanting to move out of your comfort zone, like, don't do that. Don't go up that road. That's when your ego is getting into place. An example of this was a client who wanted to learn kinesiology. Her intuition was that gentle, yes, like, yep, kinesiology would be a really beautiful experience that would really help us on that soul's journey. And yet their ego clutched in pretty strong, pretty loudly with a sense of anxiety and stress when it came to actually paying for kinesiology. All of their scarcity, their limiting beliefs about money, that was all the ego stuff. The intuition said, don't stress about money. We've got it. It's on its way. And yet the ego said, nah, we're going to stay small. And so this is the difference between your ego and your intuition. A lot of times people will go to sign up for courses or trainings and that ego will do anything it can to look for a reason why not to grow. And so it's like, oh, it's divine timing, I don't have the money. But it's actually like, no, you're not trusting your intuition. So I hope that helps. It's a dynamic conversation exploring the difference between intuition and ego. Once it lands, once you get it, there's no going back. So I hope that helps, guys, and I'll talk to you later.